with you. I'm going to declare item 2 as urgent in order that the committee consider this matter before the deadline for submission of accounts, which is the 30th of June 2023. Now, item 1 on the agenda is declaration of interest, and members are asked to declare any interest they have in any items of the agenda. It will be helpful for members to express why they are declaring interest in the item concerned if they are to do so. I'm not seeing any hands up online with declarations of interest, and nobody in even once expressed, so there are no declarations of interest at this stage. But if you do feel there's a declaration of interest as we go on with the meeting, just do so then, and I'll pick it up there. We now move on to the draft annual accounts. It's item 2. It's the only agenda item on today's meeting. It's the draft annual accounts for 22-23, and this report is by Mr. Norm MacDonald, the Chief Financial Officer, and it seeks approval for the submission of the draft annual accounts to Audit Scotland for 22-23. The unaudited accounts required to be submitted no later than the 30th of June. And Norm MacDonald is present with us in Committee Room 1 to speak to the report and answer any questions. Mr. MacDonald.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I don't intend going through the accounts, but if there's any questions, I'll take them after. I think it's important to point out that what you're approving is the submission of these accounts to Audit Scotland so that they can then do the audit. You're not really approving the contents of the accounts, the accuracy of these things. So you're approving this version as being what we're going to submit. The report mentions that the group accounts might not be included in this document, but we got the valuation joint board accounts on Friday, so these have not been incorporated into the group. In terms of what we're reporting, the external reporting, the reserves are in a better position than they were when we did the external report earlier in the month. So we're expecting to have about 2.9 million available to support the budget going forward.
Sorry, no. Councillor Gordon, Murray, I see your hand is up, but you want to come in before Mr. MacDonald carries on? Or?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just let Mr. MacDonald carry on. He might answer my question as he goes forward with his chat.
I mean, I don't intend to sort of put any detail on their things. That's the main points I'm trying to make. So I'm happy to take any questions on any of the documents.
And we do as a committee appreciate the work that you put into this, Mr. MacDonald, because to get the accounts to the stage that you've got them at today, you know, it's no mean feat. It's been a fantastic achievement. We're ahead of time with them. I know some of it came through, that's why I rolled it out, and some came through this morning, but that's just the figures only. The bulk of the report was present beforehand. So, you know, I do commend you and what the team has done on this. It was good. And like you did say, this is only just for the approval of the content of the report. It is then to be audited by auditors, and any questions will come back to you from auditors. If there's any questions you raise, she'll answer. I'm going to ask Councillor Gordon Murray. Gordon.
Thanks, Chair. It was just in regards to again, a couple of points. Thanks for the clarification that we're not actually approving accounts, we're approving their submission. So thanks for Mr. MacDonald for clarifying that. The point I was going to make is, and I know that Mr. MacDonald and his team have been working very hard to get these in, but is the timetabling of this meeting too restrictive for them? Because we only got the remainder of the report, I think it's 5 hours ago if you look on SharePoint. And I know it's not very fair on the officers if they're working to such tight deadlines. Surely we could, you know, arrange or speak to the team, the department, and say when would the report be ready, and then give another 3 days, because I think it's very unfair to put our officers under so much pressure. And I think there's a deadline for these submissions to be done, and I don't think it's the 30th of June. Is it the 30th of September? Maybe I've got my dates wrong, but just on your thoughts on that, Chair, because I think it's very unfair to have undue pressure on the accounts team. I think we should, because I think since you've been Chair, this report has been late or within the 3 days, and I think that's not fair. It's not fair on councillors either who want to read the report. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. I do appreciate the comments you made there, and it has been a lot of pressure on Mr. MacDonald and his team. But I think it is credit to Mr. MacDonald and the team that they've got to where we are today. The date of September that you did say was the date that Audit Scotland presented them back to us. Audit Scotland have already confirmed, and asked Mr MacDonald to come in and confirm this in a minute. Audit Scotland have already come back to confirm that they are not going to meet that deadline of the 30th of September. They are going to be late with it. But I've asked Mr MacDonald to come in and clarify the timeline regarding his own department, and obviously the timeline has been given by the auditor and Audit Scotland.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. The deadline for us submitting the draft accounts to Audit Scotland is the 30th of June. So that's Friday. So we always aim to have the accounts done at least a couple of days before. I think the nature of working in accounts, you're always going to be working in them up to the deadline anyway. I think everyone would say pretty much that that's what happens. So we always like to give ourselves a couple of days just in case. So 28th is a fair date. I appreciate that you don't have time to consider all the figures, which is why we provided the narrative pages at the start, at the end of last week. Because most of the questions usually are in relation to the narrative. So that was provided last week to give you a chance to read what we're saying. The deadline, the 30th September date, is for the audited accounts to be signed off. And like the chair said, that's likely to be October this year.
Thank you for that. Councillor Murray, you want to come back in on that? Does that clarify the situation for you?
That's fine. I'm very grateful for that response. So come, say, September or October, when this comes back, this will give us a chance to ask the questions at this committee on the figures. Would that be correct, Chair?
Yes, you can ask questions, and then Audit Scotland will also at the same time present their findings in their annual audit report as well. So you can address questions to them as well.
Many thanks. Many thanks for that.
You said you're not taking questions. Are you taking questions on the narrative? Which is
no, we can ask. I know I said you could ask questions.
That's good, because I don't want to ask questions when you're not get to answer them.
Well, you can ask questions.
You know, I'm just going to go on some of the narrative that's written here. For instance, we're looking at you mentioned reserves at 2.9 million. Your expectancy was,
I think that
higher.
No, it was lower.
So what was your expectancy?
I think when we did the quarterly, the return report was like 1.5, 1.6. So don't have the exact figure.
So really, we're twice the amount of double.
There was about £1 million claims.
Yeah, there's a fair, so there's a fair amount of scope there for us.
Well, in terms
Additional spending.
not really, because you're looking ahead. You're looking at a deficit of maybe 7 million in 24-25.
24-25.
Yeah, which is next financial year.
Yes.
So that 2.9 million, I would argue, will help bridge that gap next year in the following year's budget.
So what you're saying is that there's 2.9 million in reserves. Is there any other reserves?
This is 3.5 million.
So therefore, if we add on 3.5 and 2.5, we've got an excess of 6.x million.
But even if you spend all that, you don't have enough funding to bridge the gap.
Sorry, do you want to give a bit of an explanation as to, I think, Councillor McCaden's, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the point you raised is we seem to have more reserves than we probably thought we had to begin with. And
some of us, as Norman knows, my ideas, I should say, I wouldn't say mine, on reserves is maybe doesn't accord with Norman's, but I would say that in times of difficult times that we're going through at the moment, to hold on to 6.4 million in expectation for next year, when next year hasn't come.
But we need to remember, because we'll be starting again with the budget board. I think it's next Tuesday. I think correct. I think that's the first budget board for the coming.
So I'll keep that to the budget board.
So the budget board will be the way to bring the next figures forward. Do you want to address maybe the difference maybe in the reserves? I think an understanding for the committee as to.
Well, the difference in the reserves from the outturn to this report is that when we're doing the accounts, the meeting happened at the beginning of June. when we're preparing the accounts, there's a lot of accounting entries that go into the accounts and then they reverse back out for preparing this document. So some of these entries have started being processed and we haven't reached this stage. So I think that's where the additional funding came from. I mean, the reserves that we have are the reserves we have, but what we had in the report was.
I'm not criticising the additional fact that we're at 2.0. It's great to know that we've got another 2.9 million apart from 3.5 million, which is a fair amount of money, if we're honest about it, in regards to other authorities who are actually in deficit at the moment.
But we are in deficit.
For 24-25.
Yes, but how are you going to address that if you spend all the reserves? You have no choice. You've got nothing left then to sort of bridge the gap or smooth the process. You would have to just cut 7 million in 24-25.
Yeah, I see.
You need your reserves to sort of smooth that process.
Yeah,
And again, that'll be a process we'll be going to do, starting with the budget board, with, you know, at least we're in a better position. Than
We're in a better position than before. So
that's.
Any other questions?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't want to hog it. I want people to come in.
I'm not seeing anybody.
But if there's no lights, then I don't want to. No, I want to go away here and not say, well, they didn't even ask questions.
No, it's all give me the questions from Audit and Scrutiny.
So yeah, it's COVID money. COVID money. See this one. This is just what I've seen.
all the stuff that's reported in here is apart from the reserves. This what was in the interim report that went earlier this month.
Well, I was just going to ask, have we any surplus COVID money?
There is some money left that was banded as COVID, but I think it's sort of set out for specific things.
And some of it got used, Mr. McDonald, for we gave some communities for groups to work with some of last winter as well.
There's some business support stuff as well.
Yeah.
I can send an email right about that. It was actually in the interim report, the detail was included.
What I was going to get at is that the COVID money, if there's any COVID money left over, then in the news at the moment, there's the problems with ASM in education. And we're seeing it in schools in a drastic way. And it's all got an effect back to COVID. So I would say this, if there is extra money within the COVID, but I don't know if this is where to discuss.
No,
I think all the COVID money is earmarked for either business support.
Yeah.
A list of projects that went to committee just a while back. So, and then we sort of took some of the money that was previous year after COVID for our cost of living fund as well. There's a good portion of that still there because we got some government money for that. But I can send a list from you of what COVID money is there. It was included in that appendix, I think.
No, it's in that appendix to the report. But again, that's something that we can have when we start the budget deliberations. Again, you know, all that will come to light again. Last question. A couple of. I've got. Oh well. No, I like you finish.
I think maybe.
I'm aware I've got Councillor Macaulay and Councillor Murray, but I'll ask Councillor McLean to finish off.
It's just you just mentioned there's no new borrowing. No new borrowing. I see that in the yeah. So we didn't borrow anything in last year.
We haven't borrowed any money for. I can't remember the year. Say 10 years. It's a long time since we. Because we've got when you look at we've got lots of money invested, so when we've got investments, we wouldn't be borrowing money. We were using the money that we have invested. If we needed to spend it, we would use the money we have already rather than borrow new money.
Yeah, some people would say that sometimes when you're in dire straits economically, that sometimes it's better to borrow and pay back over a long period of time. We've talked about this before.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
But again, that'll be.
You can only borrow for capital. You can't borrow for revenue.
Yeah, that's right. But it would raise some capital. In other words, capital projects or whatever. But
again, that'll be discussions going forward for budget board and thinking forward. Okay, Councillor Macaulay first, and then Councillor Murray taking his hand. Councillor Ian Macaulay.
Thanks, Chair. And my question, I don't think is for Norman. Norman is presenting us with the statistics that we are presented with, but there's a couple of questions regarding how these statistics are got at. And my question may be, where will I raise those questions? Is maybe my question, if that's not too confusing. My first point relates to the page 3 of the report. There's a graph that states the workforce of the council has stayed the same over the last 6 years. Indeed, like this year, it's gone up a wee bit. Whilst over the last few years, if I remember rightly, we've been telling the public that we have been making substantial cuts to the workforce. But according to these stats, they seem to be actually going up. But that's one question I want to try and understand. The other question I was wanting to understand was, there's also a note there of all employees earning over 50k.
Before we go into any, you're not going to go into any specific employee, are you?
No, not at all. No. The stats simply say that there's of employees earning over 50k, and that's gone up over the last 2 years from 102 staff to 137 staff. Now, I quite understand that staff get pay rises, and that's going to mean that more people start to earn over 50k, and indeed an extra 8 earned sort of could count for that statistic. But I don't understand why it's gone from 102 to 137, especially when we as a council we've seen them cutting heads of department, we've seen them cutting other heads, and we've also paid out 1.7 million in voluntary and early retirements over the last 2 years. And like I say, I appreciate Norman's just presenting these figures to him, and I don't think that the questions are about him, but I'm just trying to reconcile these different things. So it's a question for somebody at some point. Thank you, Chair.
Also got Carmen McDonald present with us as well, but I'll ask Norman to come in first. Mr. McDonald, are you able to answer Chris McCauley's question?
I'll leave this first question to Carmen, but I think the figures are basically from the payroll, well, from the HR system. And I suppose the graph doesn't really show the exact figures. So there are slight ups and downs, but I'll let Carmen answer that.
Yes, they're taking it a set point each year. I believe this was based on the 31st of March. So we run a report off our payroll. There is a difference between headcount, which is the number of physical people, and FTEs with regards to if you class a 37 working per week. So that sometimes accounts for the difference. So although you may have less employees, you may have overall a higher number of working hours and vice versa. And as Mr. McDonald clearly stated, it is a graph, so you could look at specific numbers just to see. The graph probably doesn't quite represent the change as clearly as numbers would. Again, with regards to the earnings, again, something that's happened this year, although yes, numbers will go up in grades, pay increases have occurred. There are perhaps a higher number of people in a higher earning bracket now just due to the pay increases. Also this year, due to the increased people may have got a lump sum at one point of the year due to the backdating of the pay awards, so that may make a difference. But again, we can look into the specifics and feedback directly to the committee.
Yeah, could I ask you to do that, Ms. McDonald? Maybe just to look into it and to send some feedback to all committee members, just so we get a clear understanding. Are you happy with that, Chris McCauley?
Well, I'm not a committee member. Sorry, I should have maybe started with that. I'm not a committee member, so I'd appreciate if it was sent to all members. But the other thing I don't understand how we're saying we're saving money if you're saying we have less staff, but the staff that are there are working more hours. So as a council, we haven't really saved any money. I would say then over the last 6 years, if on the first one. But yeah, the second one I didn't understand quite your answer, but if you're going to email it out, I'll get it then. Thank you. I appreciate your answers and your time.
I think what I'll do, Councillor McCauley, on your first question as well, is I'll try and see if we can. Sean has taken a note of the question here, so we'll maybe see if we can get a written response to you. The Chief Executive, unfortunately, not present with us today. He's away. So we'll maybe try and get him to come back with a response to circulate that to our members as well. That's okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gordon Murray.
Thank you, Chair. quite interested in Councillor Macaulay's comments there. It might be reassuring to the public that something goes out about these staff numbers, because I've heard numbers thrown about in the chamber of losses of 250 or whatever, you know, and it'd be good to reassure people that that's just not the case according to the stats that Mr. MacDonald's presented. And also, I want to protect Mr. MacDonald because he's an advisor to the committee as a Section 95 officer, and say to Councillor McLean that it was the council's decisions at the budget that resulted in this huge amount of 6.4 million in reserves, so, or unspent money. So it's our decisions at the end of the day. I think Mr. MacDonald is just advising us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any further questions? I'd like to see hand, Councillor Murray. Yes. Thank you. I'm not seeing any further hands up and nobody in the rooms with any further questions. So the recommendations are at 3.1. Now I noticed 3.1B is actually been done now. It had 7 event figures for the group accounts, so nothing complete in time to be presented to the committee. We authorise the Chief Financial Officer with the group accounts as soon as possible. So that's now been done. So we can take 3.1B out of the recommendations. And we've got 3.1. We're agreeing that it is recommended the Comhairle approve the draft annual accounts and group accounts for submission to Audit Scotland. Agreed?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And again, on your behalf, I would like to thank, and I'd like to pass this on to your team as well, Mr. MacDonald, because I am conscious that we have a large document here in front of us. It's the work that's going on behind this. Many of us don't actually appreciate the volume of work it is in that, and to get it timelessly to us today is a great achievement. So when we hear that Audit Scotland are actually going to delay their own findings for a month at least, you know, to have our side of it, it's fantastic. So well done to you all. So the next scheduled meeting of the committee will be on Thursday, 21st September 2023. I'd like to thank you all for participating today and your attendance, and I hope you all have a good summer break and a good summer recess and you enjoy your time away. Thank you all very much. Thank you.